Captain Paul for the Locker Room here. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, and let's get right into it. So Nick Suzuki is seeing a little bit of a negative feedback from some Montreal media on a website called A Winning Habit. Joey Nobleman had some negative things to say regarding Nick Suzuki and his contract. This is what he had to say. This season, 40 centermen have outscored Suzuki, meaning among other things that he would not even be second centerman on many teams, let alone the first. Although in his fourth year, Suzuki is showing little sign of offensive development, the default response is that he's limited by a lack of surrounding talent, suggesting that he will improve as the roster does. It is true, some high-profile players that do significantly improve later in their career as their teams develop. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Jeff Skinner are examples, are greatly benefiting from their club's reconstructions for the most part. However, what you see is what you get, and I propose sooner Habs Nation acknowledges that success, as in Stanley Cup contender success, will not be in the cards with Suzuki at the helm, the better. Of course, there's possibility he could blossom, but is that a hope worth hanging on to, or should the Canadiens instead put their energies into convincing other teams that Suzuki could become a star for them and toss him into a trade pool? Wow, that is a extremely strong statement, and one that I am going to vehemently disagree with. Let's go into Suzuki's career and let's just discuss the stats. First year in the NHL, 71 games played, 13 goals, 28 assists for 41 points. That is a great rookie showing. Second season, in a shortened season, 56 games played, 15 goals, 26 assists for 41 points. That's a big uptick. Yes, he had the same point total, but far less games. Suzuki is starting to show, at the age of 21, a very promising future, and he could develop into being a number one center. His third season in the NHL, at the age of 22, played a full season, 82 games played, 21 goals, 40 assists for 61 points. Again, another solid showing that he's continually getting better. That is a career high for him thus far. And in 53 games played this season, 17 goals, 25 assists for 42 points. It wouldn't be a stretch to see Suzuki surpassing 61 points and maybe getting in the 65 plus range. What more do you want from your 23-year-old center? There are aspects in his game that he could improve. He's only winning 47.8% of his faceoffs, but I think as time goes on, that's a skill that can be continually worked on and improved. And it made me think, does this guy have a point? At the age of 23, is moving on from him now the best idea? And is he making that much money? Because in the article itself, a bone of contention was what he's making per year. His cap hit is $7.875 million a year. Is that far too much for a player that hasn't reached a point per game? I would argue no, and I will give comparisons for my reasoning why. Let me go into Nico Hischier. His current cap hit per year is $7.25 million. In 51 games played, he has 21 goals, 26 assists for 47 points. He's playing on a significantly better roster, still a little under a point per game pace, and I would actually have to argue, while yes, he's getting paid a little less than Nick Suzuki, it's a pretty good comparable. I mean, if you look at his season 23 last year, 70 games played, 21 goals, 39 assists for 60 points. His highest point total in his season thus far is 60 points. And I don't see Devils reporters or journalists riding in the streets over his contract. He's a young player that is going to continually improve and grow as time goes on, and young centers are hard to find. The one thing that Hischier does a lot better than Suzuki right now is winning draws with a 53.7 face-off winning percentage right now. But as I said, I believe that skill can be improved upon time. So what about another player that I feel is comparable? Not a center. Production-wise, I think is kind of around that point. Roope Hintz, in 46 games played, 22 goals, 27 assists for 49 points. He is having a fantastic season and really came onto the scene strong last year. Now, he's a little bit older than Suzuki, but you could see in Dallas, when he was at the age of 23 in the 19 to 20 season, 60 games played, 19 goals, 14 assists for 33 points. It kind of shows, if you have young players with promise, you just don't ship them off early because they're hitting a certain age number. 23 is still extremely young. And look at Roope Hintz now. He's a star at the NHL level, scoring around or above a point per game pace. And Roope Hintz signed an 8-year deal, $67.6 million with the Dallas Stars on November 29th of 2022. And while yes, they don't play the exact same position, Roope Hintz is a winger, Suzuki is a center, Roope Hintz's cap hit is going to be $8.45 million per year. Center is the far hardest forward position to play, so in my opinion, just looking at these contracts, if Suzuki keeps improving, and even if he stays around a 70-point producer with his two-way game, this actually could be a bargain of a deal. Now I'll go back to centers here, and this is a guy that has really turned into a star under Tampa. Braden Point, 52 games played, 32 goals, 27 assists for 59 points. Braden Point has been within Tampa for a while. This is his 7th year on the Tampa Bay squad. His rookie year, when he was 20, he had 68 games played, 18 goals, 22 assists for 40 points. Now, Braden Point offensively has a little bit more production than Nick Suzuki. I mean, his 22-year-old season, 79 games played, 41 goals, 51 assists for 92 points. Age 23, because that's what we've been using in this video, 66 games played, 25 goals, 39 assists for 64 points. But if you look at Braden Point, this season, the 52 games played, 32 goals, 27 assists for 59 points, he's going to be around a point per game or above it. But the 2 seasons prior to it, 66 games played, 28 goals, 30 assists for 58 points. Then in 2020 to 21, 56 games played, 23 goals, 25 assists for 48 points. You saw a little bit of a downward trend offensively, but this year he's kind of come back at it. And did the Tampa Bay Lightning give up on Braden Point? No, they have a bona fide star. So what did Tampa Bay do to secure their young star? Well, he signed an 8-year, $76 million contract with the Lightning. This year he has a cap of $9.5 million. He's locked up until 2030. And it kind of goes to show you're better off locking up these guys young and getting term, so you can utilize them in their prime and get a relatively realistic deal. Is Nick Suzuki producing as much as Braden Point at this point in time? No. But I would argue this. Nick Suzuki is in a far worse situation. Tampa Bay really does have a well-rounded top 6, so Braden Point is surrounded by very good players. Braden Point's also a little bit older. I'm looking at the Habs and the young players that they do have. They just need time. I'm not saying Nick Suzuki will become the best player in the NHL. But even if he stays the same player he is now, which admittedly I don't see happening, I see him improving, I think this is still a very good contract. You have to pay young centers. You have to pay centers that are going to be in your system for a long time. I mean, he is the captain of your team. While yes, he has some personality traits that are great, which is kind of touched upon within this article, at the same time, let's not shake a stick at what he provides on the ice. A good two-way center with the potential to be a point-per-game player is very rare to find. I think when it kind of comes to articles like this, I understand the frustration of not having a superstar on your team. But let's just call it what it is. Not every single player is going to be a McDavid or a Draisaitl. Instead of complaining about what you don't have, you should be very happy with what you do have. Because most teams around the NHL would love to have Nick Suzuki as their future #1 center. He's very young, only 23. He's showing flashes that he could really be something special. And as I've stated in this video, if he stays the same exact player throughout the rest of his career as he is right now, $7.875 million is pretty much right on the money for what a player of that caliber should make. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section. Do you think Nick Suzuki is overpaid? Do you think Montreal should get off of him? Or do you agree with me that he's a great young center and the future's pretty bright? If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. We're trying to reach 2,000 before the end of the month. I'll see you in the next video.